Your body is a temple. That's my mom. Your body is a temple, darling. That's my grandmom. And that is the message that I got through my whole childhood. And what it means is, don't have sex until you're married. And I was down with it. I was a pretty obedient kid, and I was 8, didn't really want to have sex. But then when I was 16, and I fell in love with my first boyfriend, Chris, I realized it was going to be kind of difficult to not have sex. The way I felt about sex was that sex was like a giant fan, like floor to ceiling, and I was standing on linoleum in socks. It was like the floor was oiled with cocoa butter, and I was being pulled into the fan. Which is kind of a dark image because when a person gets pulled into a fan, it's like, body parts, blood. So I was a little bit of a head case about sex. And then I had this boyfriend, Chris, who I really loved. And he was sweet, but he was ambitious sexually. He had goals. But he was patient, so he was willing to work with me. And I was scared, and I pretty much cried. Whenever we did I cried a lot. He was cool with that. But whenever we did something new, any new benchmark was trauma, and I cried a lot. But Chris, I gotta give him credit, because he didn't let it stop him. He was like, I'm doing something down there, she's crying, but I'm gonna keep going, because I got somewhere I gotta get to. But sadly, Chris was in the right place at the wrong time, and I was not going to go all the way with him. It just became apparent. And he was creative, too. I don't know where he was getting his ideas, from the back of Mad Magazine or something. This was, before the internet, where he mailed away to some P.O. box in New York. But he had this idea that he wanted to suck my toes. He got the idea that this was some kinky, amazing, fabulous experience. And we had to get creative because I was not going to have sex with him. So I agreed. But I had to suck his toes first. I know, right? I don't know if I had to, but I think the idea was that there was going to be a huge payoff, right? When I got my toes sucked. And if there's anyone here tonight who has not had their toes sucked or has not sucked a toe, you don't have to. I did it for you. And it was gross. And I broke up with Chris. And then I fell in love with Jeff. I did love him, my next boyfriend. We were 17 now, and Jeff really laid it on the line, and he said, you're gonna have sex with me, or I'm gonna break up with you, and find someone else who will. And I know, kind of ooh, but at the time, it made a lot of sense to me. Jeff had to do what Jeff had to do. And I'd been putting up with Chris for a really long time. So Jeff was in the right place at the right time. And I was like, fine, let's do it. Let's get it over with. I lost my virginity on a towel in the backyard at my parents' house after they went to sleep. It was great, actually. But when I say towel, I mean, my dad was cheap, so he kept a towel until it was if a towel could absorb 1 ounce of water, it was still in service. So it was like the consistency of sandpaper and frayed on the edges, and we put it in the grass, and we made love. It was fun. It was fine. And then we wanted to have sex all the time. But we had nowhere to go. So that's the thing. When you're 17, you have nowhere to go to have sex. The backyard gets kind of old. And my fantasy was that one day we would be married, and we would have a king-size bed, and we would live together, and we'd be able to have sex all the time with, no barriers. So all these years later, I'm not married to Jeff, so don't get all teary. But I am married. And we do have a king-size bed, and we have like all access, all hours to our bed, but the fan has slowed a bit. It's still moving around, but you can like put your finger in there and you're not gonna like lose a nail or anything. But we try, and like just the other day we tried, and my 10-year-old son walked in. Well, here's the good news. We tried, but we never got anywhere, right? So he was like, my husband was giving me a back rub, which is how it often ends, sadly. And my son walked in, and so I realized it was all good, but I realized pretty soon someone's going to have to tell my 10-year-old son the story of the temple and the fan. No, I'm just kidding. I've had a lot of therapy. A lot. So when the time is right and the place is right, my husband will talk to my son. Thank you.